NASA moon landing, the new Artemis missions. The NASA chief teases, and he says, wait till you see what we have planned for 2020. We know that Russia aims to have a lunar South Pole base, and it's going to be run by robots. The cosmonauts will only be sent up when these robots can't fix something, can't handle something properly. So the Russians are going to be having a lunar south base, and the Chinese as well are going to have a lunar south base and South Pole base. And whoever gets there first is going to, it's another space race actually. And it's astonishing because up to now, for the longest time, the Russians have been shuttling astronauts and cosmonauts back and forth from Earth to the International Space Station. And that's going to be something to see. Will the private companies that are going to be shuttling the US astronauts to the moon be able to do so properly, securely? This is something that we have to keep our eyes on. Now, the thing is that we are also having, President Trump also gave the first release of funding for the US Space Force, and I don't know how that's going to be working in conjunction with planetary missions. I hope that they do work with each other. Now, Sebastian Kedler reports this. The NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine teased the next moon landing. He promises an exciting year for 2020. We know that they plan to put women on the moon as well. Now, the Russians, okay, they have had some women cosmonauts in the past. I don't know how successful they were, but recently one cosmonaut was, excuse my language, okay, you understand the difference between men and women. It's the time of the month thing. So the cosmonaut says, you know, we can't plan our trips to the moon or to space around the woman's time of the month. So you can understand how that is a problem. Now, so NASA will return to the moon next year. According to the chief of NASA, they're fast tracking to the moon. They have landing programs and will see the first woman on the moon they plan by 2024. NASA's goal is to establish a permanent base for a residency on the lunar surface, using the moon as a stepping stone after that to the planet Mars. So starting next year, NASA's Artemis program, Artemis is right out, it was Apollo's sister. The Apollo landings were the first successful moon missions. This one's going to be called Artemis because they're going to have women astronauts. Thus Artemis, the female. So the Artemis program will launch unmanned probes to the moon's south pole. The probes will scout the surface for a suitable landing spot when NASA's astronauts finally take the step to travel to the moon again. NASA, it's going to be, the South Pole is going to be quite busy, don't you think? It's going to have the Russians and their robots. It's going to have the Chinese, and I don't know, I would assume they're going to have robots as well. And you also have the US there, all of them, all three of them on the South Pole of the moon. So NASA Administrator Bridenstine teased today, claiming that the new year will be particularly busy for NASA. The chief said 2019 will be remembered as a year the Artemis program really became a reality, with real spaceflight hardware built, U.S. commercial and international partnerships standing behind it, and hardworking teams across NASA and the world coming together like never before to quickly and substantially explore the moon and use what we learned there to enable humanity's next giant leap, that is, sending astronauts to Mars, he said. And he goes on to explain, while Artemis program came into sharp focus this year, NASA continued to show what leading in space exploration is all about, whether it was kicking off 2019 with the New Horizons historic Kuiper Belt object flyby, conducting the first all-women spacewalk outside the International Space Station, or developing the first flying robotic explorer to study Saturn's moon Titan. And wait till you see what we're going to do in 2020, he says. So, after the legacy of the Apollo program from the 1960s and 70s, the Artemis missions aim to permanently settle on the moon by the year 2028. And that's going to be quite expensive, because they have no resources there whatsoever that they can live on. So you have to be shuttling everything back to the moon. Now, towards this goal, NASA says it's developing technology and science that will make it easy for deep space exploration. He said, throughout this year, as I have visited each of our centers, I've personally witnessed their unparalleled commitment to accomplishing our mission. And he goes on to say the daily devotion of our employees make them well deserving of this award. I'm honored to lead such a dedicated team. They are what makes NASA the best place to work in government. So the timeline of NASA's Artemis program, they start next year. That's when NASA will launch the first human spacecraft to the moon in the 21st century, and the launch will also test NASA's Space Launch System, the SLS rocket. It's supposed to be the most powerful rocket in the world once it is completed. Now, Artemis number 1 will demonstrate NASA's ability to reach the moon after 50 years, after Neil Armstrong first walked on the moon in 1969. After that, we have Artemis 2 that will carry the first astronauts to the moon's orbit on board an Orion capsule. In 2024, Artemis 3 will fly astronauts to the surface of the moon, and NASA says that the agency will fly 2 missions around the moon to test its deep space exploration systems. NASA is working towards launching Artemis 1 in a few months, next year, 2020, an uncrewed flight to test the SLS and Orion spacecraft together. And he goes on to say Artemis 2, the first SLS and Orion flight with crew, is to launch in 2022. NASA will land astronauts on the moon by 2024 on the Artemis 3 mission, and about once a year after that. And he says once they are on the moon, the space agency will explore the lunar surface to uncover deposits of water and other resources. And they hope that moon landings will inspire the new generation of people to pursue STEM careers, that is, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.